ओके। तो हेलो दोस्तों, आप सभी को स्वागतम करता हूँ और एक नई वीडियो में। तो आज मैं रीडिंग करने वाला हूँ। जस्ट जो पहली जो वीडियो थी उसमें जहाँ मैं था उससे मैं आगे आज पढ़ने वाला हूँ। तो लास्ट में फर्स्ट चैप्टर की मैं 40 पेज तक मैं गया था, तो आज 40 पेज से आगे बढ़ेंगे। तो 40 पेज है, 40 की आगे पेज क्या है इसमें ऊपर। ओके, तो मैं ज़्यादा टाइम नहीं लेने वाला हूँ, तो चलिए शुरू करते हैं। A long time ago, in a movie franchise far away, Star Wars has been a legendary success. The original film cost is 11 million dollar to make, and its total box office has exceeded 775 million dollar. That's just the tip of the iceberg. 11 additional financially successful films for a total worldwide box office, not even taking into the count inflation for some numbers that are 40 years old, of over 10.3 billion as of yearly 2020. A gigantic industry of merchandise, tie-ins, and theme park rides. In addition, Disney paid $4 billion to buy the rights to the franchise in 2012. Okay, Film Studio United Artists had the first opportunity to get in the Star Wars and passed. After seeing George Lucas' science fiction film THX 1138 at the Cannes Film Festival, UA signed Lucas to a two-picture deal. The studio first when Lucas offered them Star Wars after having earlier first when he offered it American Graffiti, which went on to become a huge hit. Several other studios also rejected Star Wars, including Universal, which had cleaned up by distributing American Graffiti, and Disney, which paid roughly 400 times what it would not spend in the early 1970s to get in on the franchise 35 years later. The consensus opinion is that United Artists, Universal, and Disney, each in their own way, made a colossal blunder. Sci-fi Wire, one of the numerous websites covering the long unfolding story of the film franchise, took the typical view referring to the quality of UA's decisions. Keep in mind this was the studio that was busy putting out yet another Pink Panther sequel. So they were not too interested in films that were not safe or remotely not bad. The definitely in getting Star Wars made is one of the cheap reasons people repeat what the late William Goldman, legendary novelist and screenwriter, famously said about Hollywood. Nobody knows anything. Those are easy conclusions to make, and practically everyone makes them. There is so much we ignore. However, when we do that, using the format of the prompt in this exercise, these are ways we can recognize that the conclusion that it was a giant mistake to pass on Star Wars was resulting. The other ways the decision could have turned out even without knowing much about the movie businesses. When a movie is just a concept, as Star Wars was when Lucas pitched it, a lot of things could happen. His concept could sound great but look terrible when executed. $10 million later, none of the stars were big names. If Lucas had cast, cast different actors, the movie might have flopped. The mass audience could have decided it was not interested in science fiction films. A recession could have hit just as the movie was being released that kept people from going to the movies. Information that was overlooked or could not have been known. We don't know what the decision looked like when Lucas pitched Star Wars to these studios. 20th Century Fox, which picked off the film, did not act like they had a surefire franchise. Lucas and Fox executives have said in interviews that the studio did not understand what Lucas was trying to do. It seemed like a crazy project to them, but the studio head told Lucas, I don't understand this, but I loved American graffiti. And whatever you do is okay with me. Okay, unreasonable inferences about the decision process driven by the result. What we don't see is any similar decisions these studios made to pass on films that turns out to be great decisions. Lack of data to draw conclusions about how good the decision was. Until you look at a studio's entire slate of movies and evaluate what they bought and what they turned down, you are reaching a conclusion based on insufficient information. The point is, it's difficult to reach a conclusion about decision quality from one result. That one result should not count as much as a greater quantity of data on all the decisions the studio executives made and their overall results or data of higher quality on what the decision looked like as it was presented to the studios. Okay, now coming to the second chapter. Second chapter's the title is As the Old Saying Goes. Hindsight is not 2020. 20 by 20. Okay. The subtopic is job hopper redux. The first there is a exercise. You grow up in Florida and go to the college in Georgia. Right out of college, you get two job offers. One is Georgia and one is in Boston. The job in Boston is better career opportunity, but you are very worried about the New England weather. After all, you grew up in South. You visit Boston in February to see what the winter is like and decide it does not seem so bad. Not bad enough to give up the better opportunity. You take the job in Boston. You are miserable. A few months into your first winter, you can't take the cold and the gloom. Despite the job being everything you hoped it would be, you quit by the time February rolls around again and move back home. Circle as many of the things on the next page that you think you might be saying to yourself or that you might hear from the other people after you come back home. A friend says, I knew you had hate it there. Narrator, they did not tell you beforehand. I knew I should have taken the job in Georgia. I should have known I could not take the winter. It's so obvious. I would hate it. I grew up in South. I should have seen this coming. The job was never going to be good enough to justify the cold. A friend says, I knew you had be home within a year. We all have those people in our lives who say, I told you so, whether they told us so or not. And most of us are pretty good at beating ourselves up, wondering how we could not have known when it was so obvious it would turn out the way it did? That's why, if you are like most, you were probably wondering why there was no all of the above option. You grow up in Florida. Second exercise. You grow up in Florida and go to the college in Georgia. Right out of college, you get two job offers, one in Georgia and one in Boston. The job in Boston is better career opportunity, but you are very worried about the New England weather. After all, you grew up in the south. You visit in February to see what the winter is like and decide it does not seem so bad, not bad enough to give up the better opportunity. You take the job in Boston. You love it. The winter is no big deal. In fact, you actually like the snow and you even become a weed snowboarders. Plus, the job is everything you hoped it would be. You end up staying in Boston for the long haul. How likely is it that you say something like this to yourself? I can't believe I almost did not take this job because I was so worried about the weather. I should have known the winter was not going to be such a big deal. तो यहाँ पर 5 रेटिंग है तो इस 5 में से which one would give? I give the 5 out of 5. I give 5. How likely is it that someone in your life says something like, I told you it would be fine, knew you had loved it. You should have known the weather does not matter that much to happiness anyway. Narrator, they did not tell you either of those things beforehand. 0. I am guessing your gut reaction was that both of these would be pretty likely. Obviously, the decision about which job to take was the same, no matter how it turned out. You believe that better job is in Boston, but how big factor will the weather be in your overall happiness? The catch is you have not experienced a full New England winter, so you can't know the answer to that question in advance of experiencing. ओके देख सकते भाई अभी मैं मेरी पलक जप चुकी थी मतलब थोड़ी सी अभी क्या कहते हैं उसे नींद आ रही है पढ़ाई कर रहा हूँ लेकिन नींद आ रही है भाई ऐसा होता है देखो भाई ऑन फिल्टर देखो मैं एडिट भी नहीं करूँगा इसे ओके फॉर योर सेल्फ You are okay. कहाँ था मैंने? You have not experienced a full New England winter, so you can't know the answer to that question in advance of experiencing the winter weather for yourself. You acknowledge over the decision to move to Boston. You hated there. How could you not have known? You acknowledge over the decision to move to Boston. You love it there. How could you not have known? Same decision, opposite outcomes, but either way, love it or hate it. You feel like you should have known it would turn out that way either way. You feel like the outcome was inevitable either way. Your friends are saying, I knew it. It goes without saying that you can't know. You will you will hate it and know you will love it at the exact same time. But that's how all feel. So what gives is hindsight bias. When you make a decision, there is stuff you know and stuff you don't know. One of the things you definitely don't know is which of all possible outcomes that could happen will be the one that actually happens. But after the fact, once you know the thing that actually happened, you feel like you should have known it or did. भाई साहब मुझे नींद आ रही है, नींद आ रही है मुझे, सो नहीं सकता, पढ़ना है। ओके, इस बुक का चैप्टर खत्म करना है मुझे, मैं सोना नहीं है। ओके, थोड़ी सी मैं पानी पी लेता हूँ। One of the things you definitely don't know in which of all possible outcomes that could happen will be the one that actually happens. But after the fact, once you know the thing that actually happened, you can feel like you should have known it or did know it all along. The actual outcome casts a shadow over your ability. Remember what you knew at the time of the decision. अभी बात करते हैं, नेक्स्ट आते हैं आउटकम के बारे में। योर नॉलेज एट द टाइम ऑफ डिसीजन। जो पहली चैप्टर थी, पहले चैप्टर में हम आउटकम के बात कर रहे थे, लेकिन उसमें डिसीजन क्वालिटी था। इसमें क्या है, योर नॉलेज एट द टाइम ऑफ डिसीजन। आप डिसीजन करते समय आपका जो नॉलेज है वो कितना है, इसके ऊपर अभी बात करने वाले हैं नरेटर। Resulting makes you think that you know something about whether a decision was good or bad because you know if the outcome is good or bad. Hindsight bias adds to the raw cause caused by knowing the outcome, distorting your memory of what you knew at the time of the decision in two ways. You did know what was going to happen. Okay, sorry. Happen. Swapping out actual view at the time of the decision with a faulty memory of that view to conform to your post outcome knowledge. Okay. Now, second है, you should or could have known what was going to happen to the point of predictability or inevitability. Inside bias. What is the inside bias? The tendency to believe an event after it occurs was predictable or inevitable. It's also been referred to as knew it all along, thinking or grieving determinism. Of course, it's not just you with your own decisions, it's you with other people's decisions and other people with your decisions. Do you know what's worse than spending your life with the regret of thinking you should know, you should have known? Having that regret plus having everyone else telling you, I told you so. A second subsequence, sorry, सेकेंड सेक्शन के ऊपर बात करते हैं, सेकेंड चैप्टर की। दैट इज आई चार्ट आइडेंटिफाइंग योर ओन हिडन साइड। You buy some cryptocurrency, your investment quintuples. You say to your friends, I told you so. You should have invested too. The cryptocurrency crashes and you lose all the money you invested. You are kicking yourself saying, I should have known to sell at that high. You are trying to push a sales deal to the limit and the deal breaks. You beat yourself off that you should have known to you were pushing too far. Within a few weeks, the customer comes back to the table, accepting the deal on your terms. You knew it was a good plan all along, and you tell anyone who will listen, I told you so. Cues. Okay, cues. Uh, there are not any obvious verbal or mental cues that signal resulting. It is not common to hear somebody say out loud, that decision was terrible because I am working backward from the available outcome to determine that the decision was available. But there are obvious cues that signal hindsight bias, such as I can't believe I did not see that coming, or I knew it, or I told you so, or I should have known it. Training yourself to listen for those mental and verbal cues is a good way to hone your hindsight bias spotting skills. Okay, next कुछ exercises हैं. Now let's dig into some examples of hindsight bias from your own life. Here is actual example that I heard at the grocery store. Grocery stores, by the way, are amazing laboratories for studying human behavior. Man, I heard you talking on the phone. I love your accent. Are you Italian? Woman said, no, I am Greek. And man said, I knew it. I think the first question arrived like, think of knew it all along example. A time when you said to someone to or to yourself something like, I knew that would turn out that way. Or a time when someone said that to you. Describe the decision and outcome. What did you say to yourself or the other person? What were mental and or verbal cues that inside bias was at play? What did you feel you know all along, or what did the person tell you they knew all along? Was the information you or the other person thought you knew all along something that revealed itself after the fact, like the way it actually turned out? Yes or no? Okay. And second situation is like think of a should have known example, a time when you said it to someone or yourself something like I should have known, or how could you not have seen that coming, or a time when someone said that to you. Describe the decision and outcome. What did you say to yourself or the other person? What were the mental and verbal cues that the hindsight bias was at play? Okay, try to retain. Okay, sorry, write. And what did you or the other person feel you they should have known? Was the information you or other person thought you they should have known something that revealed itself after the fact, like the way it actually turned out? The, the most common thing is that people feel like they knew it is information that reveals itself only after the fact, most particularly which of the possible outcomes actually happened. Memory creep is the reconstruction of your memory of what you knew that inside bias creates. Now, one term is coming like memory creep. What is actually it? When what you know after the fact creeps into your memory of what you knew before the fact. And here is the thing: if you miss or remember the first and sorry, देखो फिर से मुझे नींद आ रही है. ओहो, लग गया. फिर भी नहीं छोड़ने वाला, लेकिन हम बिना पढ़े में रखने वाला नहीं. Okay, you are not going to remember what you knew at the time of the decision. That makes it hard for you to judge whether a decision was good or bad. To assess the quality of a decision or learn from your experiences, you need to evaluate your state of mind honestly and recall what was knowable or not knowable as accurately as possible. Second is hindsight bias makes you feel like the outcome was much more predictable than it was. This can cause you to repeat some low quality decisions and stop making some high quality decisions. And hindsight bias can turn a crystal ball into a phone house mirror. Next section is like what did you know and when did you know it? Our memories are not time stamped. When you open a file on a computer, you can see the date created and date modified. Your brains unfortunately did not work like that. Left to your own devices, the memory of your knowledge at the time of a decision can get distorted by the knowing the outcome. You can reconstruct what makes known before the decision and what was revealed only after the fact. We can visualize this using a knowledge tracker like so. And what is actually knowledge tracker? First is stuff you knew before the decision, and next that is the decision. Next is outcome, and next is stuff you know after the outcome. Now talk about each topics. Okay, each section. Stuff you knew before the decision. The sum of your knowledge and the beliefs at the time of decisions. For our purposes here especially, फिर से आ गया नींद. मुझे सोना नहीं है. नींद भाई अभी सोओगे रात में नहीं आएगा. अभी सोना नहीं है, मुझे पढ़ना है. Okay, the sum of your knowledge and the beliefs that at the time of a decision for our purpose here, specifically the stuff you brought to bear on making the decision. Second is stuff you know after outcome. That includes all the stuff making a decision for our purposes here. We are focusing on new information that revealed itself after the future unfolded. However, it did. Using a knowledge tracker reduces hindsight bias to clarifying. नहीं यार नहीं. नहीं, मुझे पढ़ना है. नींद आ रही है. नहीं 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 नहीं, ऐसा नहीं हो सकता. मैं ऐसा नहीं, ऐसा मैं सो नहीं सकता अभी. दिन है आज, अभी दिन हुआ है, मैं सो नहीं सकता. Okay. Using a knowledge tracker reduces hindsight bias by clarifying what you did and did not know at the time of decision. Detailing what you knew and when you knew it helps prevent stop that revealing itself after the fact from reflexively creeping into the before the fact box. Now let's try using your knowledge tracker for the examples of the inside bias you just identified from your own life. Came up with the three key things that informed the decisions, describe the decision and outcome. Then come up with three things that revealed themselves only. Okay, that reveals themselves only after the fact. As an example, here how you might use the knowledge tracker for the decision about taking the job in Boston. This is what it might look like when you move to Boston, and the outcome is that you quit after 6 months. Stuff knowledge tracker is stuff like you knew before the decision outcome, and stuff you know after the outcome. Okay. भाई मुझे बहुत नींद आ रही है, क्यों? Okay, here is how it might look when you move to Boston, and is it winter wonderland of great outcomes. आपको ट्रैकर एक रखनी चाहिए पहले किस, और ट्रैकर में क्या होगा, नॉलेज ट्रैकर में पहले अब डिसीजन करने से पहले क्या आपको पता है कि जैसे कि एवरेज टेम्परेचर, लेंथ ऑफ विंटर एंड स्नोफॉल इन बोस्टन। सेकेंड दूसरी डिटेल्स अबाउट द जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज। एंड थर्ड है योर एक्सपीरियंस फ्रॉम योर फेब्रुअरी विजिट। आप फेब्रुअरी में विजिट करे थे तो उसमें उसकी एक्सपीरियंस क्या थी, ये था। अब एग्जाम्पल हम पहले मैं रीडिंग कराऊँ ना, एग्जाम्पल उसके ऊपर है। एंड उसके बाद हमें डिसीजन लेना है। टेक द जॉब इन ये टेक इन बोस्टन, ये एक डिसीजन था। आउटकम क्या थी, यू स्टे एट द जॉब, आप जॉब में आप रहे, दैट इज द आउटकम। एंड स्टॉप यू नो आफ्टर द आउटकम, आफ्टर आउटकम अब आने के बाद आपको क्या पता चला, योर एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ मंथ्स ऑफ विंटर इन बोस्टन, बोस्टन में आपका मंथ्स ऑफ द एक्सपीरियंस आपको पता चला। एंड दूसरी है यू आर ए ग्रेट स्नो बोर्डर। एंड तीसरे दैट यू स्टे इन बोस्टन फॉर द लॉन्ग हाउल। वैसे ही आप अपना ट्रैकिंग कर सकते हैं। ओके, यहाँ पर कुछ दो सवाल हैं, आप यस और नो में अपना देना है। द डिड ट्रैकिंग स्टेट ऑफ नॉलेज बिफोर एंड आफ्टर द आउटकम हेल्प रिड्यूस मेमोरी क्रीप। ये आप करने के बाद ही आपको एक नॉलेज ट्रैकर बनाने के बाद ही आपको यहाँ पर इस सवाल की दे सकते हैं। डिड ट्रैकिंग योर नॉलेज हेल्प यू सी दैट देर आर थिंग्स दैट यू कुड नॉट हैव नोन even it is if the soul, if you feel like you should have known them. Okay, yes or no? Use the space below additional reflection on experience of using the knowledge tracker. इसमें एक आपको एक सवाल है, इसमें आपको लिखना होता है कुछ, ठीक है। तो ऑथर क्या कहते हैं कि इट्स हार्ड टू अवॉइड दैट गॉड फीलिंग दैट यू न्यू इट ऑल अलोंग। इट्स हार्ड टू अवॉइड दैट गॉड फीलिंग दैट यू शुड have known. It's unrealistic to assume that you can put a complete stop to that intensity response. But the more you identify inside bias, especially by being mindful of the verbal and the mental cues that accompany it, the better off you will be. The way you process experiences informs your future decisions. Recognizing the stuff you knew before the fact and stuff that revealing itself only after the fact helps prevent hindsight bias from the distorting what you learn from your experiences. You will be less likely that to make future decisions based on a faculty sense of what you knew or should have known it. भाई फिर से पानी फिर मुझे नींद आ रही है यार। ओके, लेकिन सोना नहीं है, जैसे करके भी पढ़ना है। ट्रैकिंग योर नॉलेज क्रिएट्स द टाइम स्टैम्प दैट कैन गेट लॉस्ट इन द वार्फ इन हिंडसाइड बायस। Okay, what is actually inside BIOS vaccine? As you were using the knowledge tracker, it may have occurred to you that it would be a good idea to journal the stuff you knew before the decision. While you are the process of making the decision, it can be hard to accurately recall what you knew before the fact. Okay. Once you already know the outcome, journaling gives you something concrete to refer back to. Writing down the key facts informing the decision of the actor. ओके, देखो यार, अभी देखो मैं पढ़ाई पढ़ रहा हूँ ना, मेरे दिमाग में क्या चल रहा है पता है? मेरे दिमाग में चल रहा है एक सपना। वो सपने के साथ मेरी आंखें भी ऐसे हो रही है, सो रहा हूँ। उस सपने में एक सपना आ रहा है। वो सपना भाई चंद सेकंड के लिए ना इतना बड़ा सपना आ जाता है भाई। क्या क्या ही बताएं इससे। Writing down the key facts informing your decision also acts like a vaccine against hindsight bias. Thinking about what you know at the time of decision in this more deliberative way creates a clear timestamp, preventing memory creep before it happens. Later, in this book, you will take a deep dive into how to better memorialize decisions. ओके, तो नेक्स्ट हम बात करते हैं सेक्शन 4 के बारे में। यू कैन फाइंड इनसाइट बायस एवरीवेयर यू लुक। ओके, कहाँ था यार भाई, कहाँ था? हाँ, ओके। You can find hindsight bias everywhere you look. Now that you have a handle on hindsight bias, take a few days to listen. For example, for of hindsight bias at work or at home, from following the news of the sports or from your boss, friends, or family. Most importantly, you pay attention to when you catch yourself in the act. Reflect below on two of the examples you spot. Example 1. Briefly describe the example. Circle the form of inside bias involved. Were there verbal or mental cues? Knew it all along? Yes. I should have known? No. If so, what were they? Complete the knowledge tracker. For example, if the example involves someone else's decision, you obviously can't know for sure what they knew at the time of decision. But that does not mean you should not try to put yourself in their shoes and take your best guess at the what was reasonable for them to know. You might even try asking them to fill in the gaps for you. ओके, नॉलेज ट्रैकर तो आपको बता ही चुका हूँ। पहले आपको स्टॉप न्यू बिफोर द डिसीजंस, डिसीजन लेना है, द आउटकम, एंड आफ्टर द स्टॉप यू नो आफ्टर द आउटकम, आफ्टर आउटकम के बारे में क्या पता चला। ओके, द एग्जांपल briefly describe the example and circle the hindsight bias involved. Knew it all along? Should have known? Yes or no? Were the verbal or mental cues? Yes or no? इफ सो व्हाट वेयर देयर। अगर यस है तो क्यों, अगर नो है तो क्यों। ठीक है, कंप्लीट द नॉलेज ट्रैकर फॉर दिस एग्जांपल। Hindsight bias and comparison. Hindsight bias, like resulting, makes us lack compassion for ourselves and others. In order to think about what was reasonable for someone to know, we have to have empathy for them. We did not generally take the time to do this, and instead of make snap judgment, we are quick